Welcome to another episode of Inside the Firm. I have Lance, Elitist, Cayko. You will see why. We have a great show for you today. I am Al, reacting to Lance, Gore. Let's pay the bills, and let's pay the bills for you by getting you more profit. Go to buildabetterco.com, watch our 5 steps to increasing your profit, and then reach out to me, AKG at f9productions.com. What profit gets you is the freedom to choose your clients, to do better work, and literally to have space in your life, to have time in your life, right? So go check that out. It's a free video. I guarantee, I know, because people have told me.
The profit of profit. Al Gore.
You can implement some of those in your life, in your firm, and then you can reach out and talk to me if you want to go even further. But if not, it's totally worth your time. Lance?
Yeah, so I love that you're going to tie that the Build a Better Business ties into Build a Better Co, buildabetterco.com. It's going to tie right into the whole show.
Oh, cool.
Oh, my gosh. I can't wait for the first little video I have for you. Yeah, and if you can't find the product data you're looking for, you might be using the wrong search engine. Broad searches result in consumer products, out-of-date information, websites that hide or don't have the information you're looking for. If you need specifications, CAD or BIM, ARCAT.com is your search engine. Find and download the up-to-date data you need fast. ARCAT.com is free and requires no registration, so try ARCAT today. That's ARCAT.com. Check them out. They will also help with your profit because they get all of the CAD data, specifications, BIM, just like I talked about. They're going to make you more efficient. Go to ARCAT.com today. Check it out. Okay, Al, here's what we got. Yeah. So the title of today's show is Architecture an Elitist Profession? I was triggered. Last night, yesterday, in the entree architect community about people are like, I don't see how it isn't an elitist profession.
Oh, it is or isn't?
That it isn't. And I go, all right, that's the whole show today. So the first thing I want to start out, the post, so the triggering happened in the comment section. However, the videos I'm about to pull up are really good. And so they're from this gal in New York City. And I'm going to pull them up here, Al. And what she starts talking about is, I love that we are finally entering the profit discussion, right? It's only in the last 10 years, I feel like, and kudos to Mark LePage for crushing it with the entree architect community and the whole movement he's created to where it is something we talk about all the time, right? Yeah. And Al already talked about the importance of profit and what it is, right? And so there's this huge idea that like profit is just greed, and like that's a really black and white version of what profit really is. When in fact, like, yeah, it's probably somewhere in the gray. Like
profit is time with your kids.
I love this. Profit is going fishing with the boys this weekend up in Granby. To catch giant lake trout.
Yeah.
You know? That's
and then
profit.
You look them in the eye and they look you in the eye.
Profit is freedom from guilt. Profit is freedom from anxiety of not having money. Profit
is paying your staff what they need to be paid, what they should be paid
to live.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's part one.
The problem, though, and this happened just now, when we start to talk about money, we start to talk about profit, everyone just turns off. They just do. It's not something that we're excited to talk about unless you're making it, right? But
I think that's changing, though, Aaron.
But, I mean, it's changing, but also, like, okay, so what's a healthy profit margin? What is one? In architecture, what do we think is a healthy profit margin? The AIA has a number to this, by the way. Just throw one out there. 15, 20%. Okay, so what's a healthy profit margin if you're a venture capitalist investing in a company that you want to make money on?
Oh, it's like 10, 20, 30.
What's a realistic one for a law firm?
40.
Close. McKinsey Management Consulting, what are their profit margins typically? 35 is McKinsey usually. You have a healthcare range between usually 12 and 35. Lawyers are usually around 40 to 50. Right? These are national averages across spectrums, right? So I'm sure there are law firms that are 10x that, and there are law firms that are like not that, right? So the majority of firms coming out of the recession around like 2015, 2016, 2017 were operating at 10% profit margin. The AIA said they were doing really well at 20, and I think you are just paying your bills at 20, and you maybe can have a few months where you don't get paid. That's just not healthy. Why is that like lauded as okay? That's not okay. And I shouldn't have to pay $400 for a report to tell me that. Someone should tell me in school that that's not okay.
I love that last part. Al, you were raising your hand there. I could feel you wanting to answer the questions.
Well, yeah, because the numbers were spot on. The only thing that I would disagree with, we talked about this in private. Architecture firms, you have to compare yourself to architecture and engineering firms. Here's why.
No, say that again, because you just said architecture. You have to compare yourselves to architecture and engineering firms.
That is correct.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I was sorry. I thought you were going to say lawyers. That's all.
No. You can look at them to give yourselves perspective. But the problem becomes when you start to say, like, hey, we're a tech firm. Like, when she brought up, what are, investors, angels investors, and stuff like that looking for a return. Like, they're looking like at 40x. You know what I mean? Like, over the long.
40x or 40%?
No, 40x.
Yeah.
40x. And
especially in the tech sector.
Here's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is that if you all of a sudden say that you are a tech company and you have 80% margin / profit, we aren't in the same boat because we are still service-based. Unless you want to make an architecture firm that is just tech-based and not service-based.
Yep.
So what I'm getting at is that I love where she's coming from. She is correct on all of those numbers. But a 20% and above profit range, if you're just a one-person firm, that's actually maybe a little bit slim, because you're just paying one person, so like you're only dealing in the 100 to 120,000, right? But if you're 4, 5, 6, 7, like anything above 20%, like you have cash in the bank, right? The average is 13.
If you're not overpaying yourself, if you don't have a lot of commercial debt, right?
Yep.
Paper debt, like you took on the debt to do advertising or something, exorbitant. You're not outliving your means.
And I'm telling you, if you are a good firm at it, 20 to 40% in architecture is extremely reasonable.
Extremely reasonable or extremely good?
Extremely good, but like you can hit those numbers. Above 40% is great, but like if you compare, like, oh, the tech industry and firm and law firms do it, like, okay, then go literally make a law firm, make a tech firm.
Did you know that law firm statistic before?
No.
She said it? I didn't either.
Nope.
35%.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was just one, right? That she had. Okay. So the caption on the original poster for this says, "Won't architectural services become inaccessible for many if architects try to maximize gains like all these professional law firms?" That's question number one. Are architects really not paid well? I find that so hard to believe.
I have a two-prong answer to that.
Yeah.
Is when my firm has enough profit and I'm not overworked, I do things for my community, meaning architectural-wise, meaning literally for the community, design a community pool.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
For free to get the conversation on the ground. My school that my kids go to is a charter school, and they are going to want to expand and take over some area. And I know exactly how to do it, which means present a plan with a bunch of trees on it and have neighborhood meetings before you go to the city. And I would do all that for free as well. The other thing too is like, I think people don't think about this. I want to go back and forth on this elite thing because
yes, you do it. And then, but just so you know, like I'm going to devil's advocate you.
That's fine.
I'm just chomping at the bits to do.
I'm going to devil's advocate myself. But think about this. Our firm is getting extremely better at design and delivery.
Yeah.
And part of profit is becoming efficient. We can and we do not feel bad about doing builder houses and doing them doing them to the best ability, design ability, spatial ability that we can. And thus making those profitable too.
The evil cookie cutter houses is what he's describing for
Yes.
all those elites listening.
Yes. So that's here's the difference. Here's the difference. I think about it in a different way. I think a lot of architects say like, hey, why can't a middle to lower class person get architectural services? It's not going to be profitable. It's not. It's like saying, why can't a middle class to lower class person get a custom car? It just doesn't work out.
Or go ahead.
Let me finish. Sorry. Interrupting, Lance. Can that same person Can we in architects try to take over the cookie cutter houses and make a great one for them? Yes, that does work. It does work in that way. So switch the way that you're thinking about servicing them. You can't do it the way that.
Okay, that's what.
Think about.
I was hoping you would say that. I was worried you weren't.
Yep.
Yeah.
Does that make complete sense?
Right. You need to design your services for that particular clientele. So you can serve the lower and middle class profitably if you switch your mindset.
Yes.
Exactly. 100%.
Yep. But the counter, the devil's advocates. But then they're not getting a custom home. Like, yeah, like no one's getting a custom car too. Like let's get the basis covers and all that. And then when you plant trees and you paint it differently and you add on addition, like then it gets custom over time.
Yep, over time.
You can afford it.
Yeah, it's true. That's literally how the suburbs work. So my response to the questions were, I said they already are. This isn't new. We are an elitist profession, and the AIA doesn't help it not be. My firm strives to serve even the lower and middle class. And I said define well, and that's the well part. We don't really have to get into it. I mean, that's like what is well, right? It's subjective. It's not. There's an income part I'm going to talk about later, but I want to focus on the elitist part. Okay.
Yep.
So there's this great white paper that I found this morning, and it's called "Elitism, IT and the Modern Architect: Opportunity or Dilemma." It's by Larry Barrow. And so it's his abstract to either his thesis or his dissertation. But this part I wanted to focus on right here, and it's the introduction of it says, formal architecture has traditionally been an elite activity isolated to the rich and ruling. Today's modern architect is a product of this evolutionary heritage. Vernacular architecture has traditionally been an activity of the masses, the poor and the powerless. Vernacular architecture like Al was describing, right? Like cookie-cutter homes that eventually get customized as people live in them for a while, get some equity, the trees grow up, they change the color of the siding, stuff like that, right?
Yep.
Here, the designer and builder are typically synonymous with the owner/user. Simplicity in form, efficiency of materials, and limited material palettes have at times resulted by formal analysis of modern architecture in a thing simple and functional, efficient beauty. This is to say that design and artistic expression are not isolated to the formally trained architect or the elite, right? So, by this introduction to definition, and just based on past precedents, it should be pretty obvious to everybody listening. Like, nope, it's an elitist profession, even in the historical context, right? Like the kings and the Roman Catholic Church had to commission people like Michelangelo to do all of the statues, to make all of the cathedrals. Like that is how it worked.
Yep.
Hands down, right? And then were the peasants commissioning the architects to build their little vernacular huts? No. It should be pretty obvious, right?
Okay. I think elitist, and I understand this and I agree with this, is seen as a bad term. And it can be a bad term.
Sure.
I think it's here's a devil's advocate. Should architects and the people who are leading the planning and design and literally the built environment be elite? Yes. What's the good way to be an elitist? What's the bad way? The bad way is the obvious way. It's led by an aristocrat. An aristocrat is where you're just taking profit, you're making everyone else do the work, and you're not adding anything to it, right? You're literally just sucking out of it. And then through your position and your intellect, you're just draining the system. That is the typical negative connotation of elitist-led, right? If you change that word to elite and your firm, whether it's architect, whether it's a company, whether it's a manufacturing plant, if you're led by a mindset that is engineering-based, artist-based, and like building-based, like literally like a doer, I think that is a good way to be an elite. Yeah. Literally the engineering mindset. I'm not even talking about the scientific mindset. I'm not even talking about marketing mindset. I'm talking about engineering, architect, and a doer. That replace an aristocrat with that, and then let's do elite in the right way.
Yeah. Exactly, 100%. I like the cost comparison. Yeah. So elitist, right? In that context would be like your average middle American, and I'm gonna get into the income of like what even is that? Like what is middle America at this point, right? Like, and then can that average middle American or lower than them afford an architect? And that's where the elitist term comes in. It's like, oh, well, I can't afford that architect, therefore it's an elitist profession. It is something I will never be able to afford. And again, we set it up with, we're talking about the past history of architects, going from, who's actually doing the cathedrals? Michelangelo, like an elite designer, an elite architect, and an elite individual, right? But you can't, it's hard to separate the two of like, okay, but could Joe Blow hire him back in the day to do his vernacular hut?
No.
No. So it's elitist. Like the two things can be true at once, right? Much as I don't like Ben Shapiro, like that is one phrase or he says that is correct. Two things can be true at once. Yes. Okay. So I've got Pew Research here has this article out, and they give you a little calculator. It's awesome. So Al and I are going to play the calculator, and what it's showing is it says, basically it's, are you in the middle class? Find out with our income calculator. So let's figure out what the middle class is in Colorado real quick here. We're going to pick Colorado, and then we're going to put, wow, it just scrolls right past it. And then we're going to put, we're in the area, just Denver, good enough. Okay. I'm going to put the household income as $100,000. Yep. A nice round number, 6 figures, right?
2 people?
The American dream, thank you. 2, exactly. You see where I'm going with this. 2 people. This seems like a pretty good average guess. Would you agree so far, Al?
I would.
Now we're going to calculate it, right? Based on your household income and the number of people in your household, you are in the middle income tier. Hey, congratulations. So in other words, if you and your spouse make $100,000 in the Denver metro area, that's it. You're there, man. So basically $50K per person in the household. Pretty simple, right? How does that compare with your SNI say? So let's just do a quick cross check just to make sure that is this like translatable everywhere else, right? Let's just say it's just high school degree too. That's all the education is. So like your average person.
30 to 44.
30 to 44. Perfect earning. Most people earners are there, right? And let's just do white because it's a white majority country still by a little bit. And we'll do
married or not married.
Oh, and we'll do married. So the average, again, the average household, like this typical family we're trying to sort of generate in our brains, right? Results say, among all American adults with your education, race, or ethnicity and marital status, 28% are lower income, 63% are middle income. So again, 63. Boom. There was the answer, right? Here's where I'm going with this. Okay. There's a couple images I want to bring up, and that is wages then versus rent. So we're seeing like, yep, that's what it is. Each person's making $50K. That's kind of ubiquitous across America. All good. And I've got 2 graphs. Al loves graphs. I love graphs.
That should have been my name, Al Graph Gore.
It should have been your name. Yep. So the first one I want to show is this graph. If you're listening terrestrially, not watching on the YouTube, on the left hand side of the graph, it starts at 1985, goes all the way to 2020. The title is percent change in median household income and median rent price. And here, most people who are at least slightly awake listening to this show, and some people are super awake, and they know that like you've heard the phrase, the statistic, the buzzword, all of that of like stagnant wages. Wages haven't increased over time, compared to cost of living. Here's a perfect graph, right? Look at the median rent price as it relates to the wages, these stagnant wages we have in America, right? There's a huge gap. Like this is literally the gap between the rich and the poor and how it all works, right? Second one I want to bring up is wages versus just prices of property, right? And why am I bringing up rent and like actual property, right? Isn't that architecture? Like that's architecture. You're living in the architecture, right? So is there like, can the average American then, like they're having trouble just affording rent? If they're having just trouble affording rent, how are they going to afford an architect to do their vernacular stuff, right? Their average sort of things. Do you see how we're It's full circle with history here. Like, we are full circle with history in this whole argument. 100%.
I was going to take my favorite pot shop at planning departments and saying planning departments are elitist because they're the ones slowing down. It's literally supply
Through protectionism,
and demand,
100%.
and then obviously supply and demand is influenced by the Fed
And I'm glad
fund
you
rate.
brought up the planning departments because I want to tie that in with the AIA at the end here.
And there's this theme that I'm spouting out here, and I'll tell you where it's coming from. I bought the book Barbarians to Bureaucrats. It's the life cycle of business, right? So you start out as a barbarian, right? Then you go to a builder, then you're a synergist, then administrator, then you're a bureaucrat. You know those big corporations like
BlackRock.
Excel.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, why are you taking 6 months to because they have a monopoly? Then you're an aristocrat, and then people revolt, right? Or your company just dies, right? So at each company / a planning department can be led by one of these, but the planning departments are led by a bureaucracy, and in an elitist way, meaning it adds on to the cost of an architect. It adds on to the cost of you have to buy land and now you need to wait a year to go through the process.
The interest of holding it. Yep, the holding costs and all of that. It's the planning departments. The planning departments are a barrier to increasing the supply of the built environment. It doesn't matter if it's commercial, if it does that everybody obviously knows this, right? But I'm trying to paint the picture of okay, so if we all agree on that, okay, fair enough. Who can influence that? Who can influence the planning departments to start pushing back and trying to deregulate them to a more common sense level, right? And before anybody listening to this starts clutching their pearls and goes Lance wants to abolish everything. Yeah, but I'm never going to get that, right? I'm just saying okay, have they gone too far? Have the planning departments gone too far? Have the building departments gone too far? Has the codes gone too far, right? And through their sort of nasty kind of a lobbying that happens with the
fire and insulation,
and insulation lobby groups, all that kind of stuff, pushing it right in that direction. Who's supposed to push back? There's a big organization out there. I don't know if anybody knows who they're called, but it's called the American Institute of Architects, right? There's a ton of architects that belong to that institution, right? You know who pushes back for builders and realtors and people who sell properties? The National Organization of Home Builders. They push back all the time.
Yeah.
And realtors. They push back all the time to try to make, because they know that the overregulation and that problem is their problem to help solve.
So I mean, to say it bluntly, if you don't like the architects is elitist term, right? Let's say you don't like it.
Yep.
And let's say it's more
and
of
you
the
don't believe it. You don't believe it.
Then you should be fighting the IBC to not racket up the electrical costs, the insulation costs, the detailing costs, and if you think, well, yeah, it makes a better home, I would probably I'll agree with you.
But capitulate just to get it through.
A BMW is better than a Toyota. I don't necessarily believe that, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Are you going to make everything to a BMW standard? Now, literally lower class cannot afford a car because you want it to be the best car? Or let's just say Tesla. Are you going to make every car be a Tesla? Every car has to be a Tesla. Teslas are better. Let's say you even have green power.
Yeah.
Let's say you have green power. Yeah, they're better. We're always pushing to that. Okay, now you realize people can't, middle and lower class cannot afford a Tesla. So which label do you want?
Thank you.
Which label do you want?
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, let's shift the lens a little bit, right? So we're talking about a lot of economics. Who can afford even an architect? And so is it elitist under that lens, right? What about just the societal lens of well, actually, what if it relates to elitism within the profession itself, right? Great article here by D-Zine. And it says architecture is more elitist than the most elite university in the world. The architecture profession, this is going to hit home because me and Al are state boys. You'll see in a second. A lot of listeners are state boys and girls here, for sure. The architecture profession, we're probably not as cool as Nick, who is we're not a Cincy boy. We didn't.
Cincinnati
Hey,
Bullets.
we didn't go to Cincy. We're not that cool.
Yeah. And to my last point, I want to add a caveat. You can be those two things at once. You can push for, I want to design the Teslas of houses,
Bingo.
but allowing for, sometimes I need to make a Toyota Camry, which works extremely well for other people of other needs.
Yeah.
So like, let's just not say that everyone has to be a Tesla.
Thank you. One size doesn't fit all. The architecture profession needs to face up to the fact that it is dominated by those that went to private schools, according to Open City Director Phineas Harper. We need to start talking about the impact of private schools on architecture. The Open City Director and former Architecture Foundation Deputy Director wrote in a thread on Twitter. Fewer than half architects in Architecture Foundation book are from state schools. At least 90% of the people in the UK receive their education from state schools, which are free to attend and funded by the government. But when Harper's former employer, the Architecture Foundation, analyzed 93 architecture practices featured in its 2016 book of New Architects 3, it found that just 45% of their founders had been to state schools, according to Harper. This is significantly lower than the 68% of new colleges at Cambridge University last year who went to state schools, the Deasing columnist pointed out. Succeeding in architecture practice is more elitist than the most elite university in the world, Harper said. Harper made the comments as the UK government received intense criticism for using an algorithm to determine the grades of A-level students who have been unable to take their exams this year. Well, there's something else, yeah. Like elitism through a whole different lens here, right? Just within the architecture community in itself, right? Two things can be true at once, right? I mean, why is it so difficult to own that title or noun that's describing you, right? Elitist. Like, okay, yeah, right. By default, if I'm your average architect, the average person can't afford me. That's just how it works. That's just how it works.
Because I'll tell you why. I'll play devil's advocate.
Okay.
What are very rich people called? Derogatory.
What? The rich? I don't know.
But the elite, evil, all this other stuff, right? And a lot of
I think you're looking for like the Marxist term. Bourgeoisie. Are they bourgeoisie?
just whatever negative connotation. Yeah. It doesn't matter. We can say elite, right? And when you talk to them, or Fox News defended them, and me in the sense of like, hey, they are that rich because you buy stock and buy stuff in Walmart, and you buy that because they're providing a service to them. So like you can vote with your dollar,
with their dollar,
right? So what a lot of people are backtracking on that is like, I'm not elitist. You just called me a negative term. So my reaction is no, right? But I think this conversation should maybe just have everyone open up the perspective aperture. Open it up and say, okay, if you believe that you are not elitist or don't want your firm to be elitist, what are you doing to not be that? And I'm telling you structurally, if you're going to do 20% time or 50% time working for middle class or lower, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because it doesn't make sense. Because then you will just be poor, stressed, and overworked, right? If you take it to maybe there are options in the code that you can advocate for. Maybe there are things that you can work with, developers to make those neighborhoods better. And there are people doing that, right? There are great suburban homes and things like that. There's great multifamily buildings, right? There's getting efficient at that. Getting efficient at doing really great multifamily buildings. I've been looking at a lot of architecture firms. There's a lot of great placemaking and architecture being done there. So if you don't like the term, just literally think about what you're doing. And I only just advise not going down the path that doesn't physics. It doesn't make sense for you to do it that way.
Yeah, I'm going to name drop. Go look at Shopworks. Chad Holtzinger is murdering it right now. He has a very successful firm, and they provide beautiful placemaking and buildings for the most vulnerable among us. It's homeless stuff. And like you look at the buildings, you go like, you literally look at the buildings you're driving along I-25, you go,
That's cool.
there. You go, it's cool, but you go, I wouldn't suspect that homeless people live there.
No.
That's all it is. That's all it is. Chad's figured it out. So back to what I was saying in reaction to this video, which was the AIA doesn't do anything to help make it a less elitist environment, right? A less elitist profession. How doesn't let me explain to you exactly how the AIA is not helping. Like, you prove to me otherwise. But I've looked. I've been waiting. I will join the AIA when I have to stop, when I finally get to, I don't have to explain what an architect does to the general public over and over and over again from the inquiries that we're getting either through the website or a phone call or whatever. Nobody knows. Like, the general public, the people, the average middle-class person that I have dealt with in the last 15 years at F9 generally does not know. They confuse it with the structural engineer or a builder. Who comes first? Who comes last? Why do I need an architect? Oh, I only need an architect because the codes and the regulations in Denver have gotten so onerous that I'm forced to do it, right? I did an anarchy build, and now they caught me, and I need Lance to bail me out.
Yep.
Happens all the time.
That's not my biggest gripe because I think it's too much of an ass. But I will back you up on the point of you're actually proving, Lance, right, when you say like, hey, need to plan new infrastructure and all that stuff, like call an architect. It's like, okay, that's great. I understand that we have value and that we needed the seat at the table, but like that's elite pitching. Like,
that was their video. That was their what he's describing is that was their big one of their big commercials they put out in the last couple of years. We showed it on previous episodes.
Oh, I've gotten email advertisers in my Gmail, about it, like infrastructure development. Like, who you are when you're talking about big projects like that. There's only 1,000 decision makers. You know what I mean? Like, it's the governor, it's the planning department and stuff like that. That's not a campaign to broadcast on TV. That's not, you know what I mean? Like, your market.
Do the masses.
That's it. If you want to do a campaign, that's fine. You literally have someone come up with all those leads, and then you just send it to those people.
Yeah.
It's 1,000 people.
I bet you could buy the list of email contacts.
Yeah.
Pretty easy. Okay. So I'm going to contrast before I start ripping apart the AIA here. Is I'm back to just to prove what I'm saying correct about the National Association of Home Builders. They do what I think the AIA should also be doing. Here's the article. The NAHB tells Congress how excessive regulations and codes harm housing affordability. Bar none. They do it. So like I'm gonna breeze past that. So I was like, you know what? Maybe Lance will be proven wrong in this podcast. Maybe
they did that. That'd be great.
The AIA?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, cool. Al, might be time to join, bro.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I want to win some AIA awards. I think we could do it. Local chapter, network. It'd be great. Yeah. We're likable people.
Yeah. Show me they did it.
So I went to the AIA.org and I started looking around. Let's design together a better world. It's a little video here and there's some architects sitting around. Anything about affordability? AIA is the largest, most influential network of architects and design professionals. That's 98,000 members who share a passion for design, change the world, commitment to the highest standards of practice. Cool.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of
cool.
influence.
There's
Good
some
job.
latest here. AIA grants honorary membership. AIA calls to repeal tax provision. Whitney Douglas something. Launch of innovative digital hub. Here's a feature project. Access the AIA Resource Center.
What's the tax provision, honestly?
Well, I'll get to that. Hang on one second. So, okay. Here's the thing. I will go back to that, I promise. Yeah. Don't let me forget. So I'm still looking literally at the website and going, all right, well, is there anything like I want to change? Hey, we're advocating for change. NAHB is having change. From the AIA.org. Be a voice for change. AIA advocacy efforts are based on our values. We advocate at the federal, state, and local levels for climate action. Equity, student loan debt relief, business interests, and more. We champion meaningful policies that enable architects to build better buildings and take decisive action on issues that matter most to our industry. I didn't see the word affordability. I didn't see
Explore the issues. Maybe it's in there.
Exactly. Hey, let's go to the issues. Let's go to the issues here. Tackle urgent issues with the AIA. AIA has a rich history of advocating for impactful designs, making a difference from the Democracy and Design Act to student loan debt relief, among many other things. Help us engage with federal, state, and local legislators to advocate for what matters most. All right, cool. Sounds good. They're a force for positive change. AIA's advocacy efforts are powered by the collective voice and actions of, again, 98,000 plus members. Today, we're taking on urgent issues affecting the architecture profession and the AEC industry. So, looking for that issue, right? They got some international efforts they're trying to do where they're trying
policy issues. All
right, federal policy issues. The more involved members are at the federal level, the greater positive impact on businesses, communities, and the profession at large. Our top issues include climate action, infrastructure, taxes, students, historic preservation, and design policy.
So I like the term elite when it's led by engineers, artists, builders, stuff like that. Okay, top issues. First one is climate action and infrastructure and taxes, like elite. And then the student one. Okay. Robert Moses, The Power Broker. Great book. Every planner should read it. If you have the time, it's huge. Every architect should read it. What happens is organizations like the AI and other organizations is they start off trying to do good, and then they literally get hammered by money interests.
Sure.
So is it better for the AIA to say we need to make architecture education more affordable so that we don't have the debt? You're going to be hammered by the colleges who are making a bunch of money.
And the banks.
And then you just pivot to say debt relief, which is literally printing money, which is increasing inflation, which is lowering responsibility, which is lowering critical thought. Like, you're placating. I'm sorry. You are placating and not hitting the real issue.
Yeah.
And you're doing it
at its root.
At its root. You're literally cutting off like little leaves and saying like, why is the tree still growing? You're like,
there's some wins, they say. Resources and wins. AIA practice primer, policy platform, climate action. Let's see here. What else? But Al wanted to talk about. What did you want to talk about? You want me to
scroll up. Keep going. Right there. Nope. Next one up. It's going to be the next where there's like 4 or 5 across.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
The tax
AI
one?
calls to repeal tax provision. Okay.
All right. Let's see what that is. Congress should also repeal the harmful research and development tax amortization provision and make it retroactive to cover tax year 2022 to ensure the tax code continues to support innovation. Okay. That's what they're doing. Just this year, Washington, January 11, 2024, the American Institute of Architects calls on Congress to work in bipartisan manner to expeditiously pass a funding deal to avoid a government shutdown.
R&D to remain competitive.
Congress should also repeal the harmful research and development tax amortization provision and make it retroactive to cover tax year 2022 to ensure that the tax code continues to support innovation. Architecture firms throughout the U.S. conduct R&D to remain competitive, to offer solutions to help solve issues like make buildings more resilient to our changing climate. If the amortization is not repealed, architecture firms of all stages face a dramatic impact on our tax liability. Architects and the entire built economy need the federal government to function efficiently to establish a consistent and clear tax policy. So the innovation is for climate change, but not innovating your practice such that, I'm still going to serve the top 1% and design the BMWs of homes, but I am not going to innovate my firm such that I can make it so efficient and streamlined
that everyone gets a Toyota.
That I can still serve the Toyotas of the world.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why it's elitist. I don't
you guys
know what
made
else
Lance hot. Came in hot.
We're gonna close it out here in a second. So I want to share a quote that I received. This is like, you're proving how this is elitist. This is unbelievable. What would a lawsuit cost you? This is what somebody said to me. Due to E&O, errors on emissions and cert. Would an injury to a job site during CA cost you? Serving lower middle clients is Walmart's job, not yours. You worked hard to get here. You're proving it, bro. Part 2. So there's the last thing I want to leave everybody with is before we jump into A.R.E. Jeopardy is I have a part 2 from this gal.
And frankly, and it doesn't just have to be about money. The way I talk about this with my students is that, because in school, hopefully you're in a position where you don't have to worry so much about money and eating, right? But in school, what's really valuable to you is your time. It's finite, right? There's only so many hours in the day, right? And whether you want to bill by the hour or not, if you think about, okay, you learned really early on, if I can just stay up another hour, it'll be perfect. Or I can produce this other drawing and everyone will love it. And then maybe they look at it, maybe it makes or breaks the entire project, or maybe they don't. But we learn that our sort of reward system is that I'm going to stay up and I'm going to do that. So when I was working at Studio Gang, we built a model, even though the competition said that they weren't going to reimburse us for models. Why? They lost. Why? Yeah, they got to second, and yeah, they were competing with another French firm, and Jeannie's brilliant, but why? Why was that a good idea? There's a pleasure reward system that says, like, if I can do this and I can just get this project and I'll just accept it, and that's just not okay. So make it okay to talk about what profit is, what's a healthy amount of time to spend on something.
I'm going to ask one question. Yes.
That's exactly it, right? It's reform. So it's going, okay, how do I make those projects with the smaller fees profitable? It's probably not that approach, right?
Yeah.
That approach is going to have to change. Like, if you're really trying to bend to the market and serve a much wider swath of the market here, architects, then this is the market challenging you. This is the market telling you to level up. Do things like go to buildabettercode.com, go to the Revit rocket ship, and get on the Revit rocket ship at this point. Like, until those kind of things happen, and you read Paul Akers' book, The 2-Second Lean. You have your firm read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Those type of things. I then just call yourself what it is. You are. You're an elitist. Own it. It is what it is. Like, you can be true.
There you go. You summed it up.
Yeah.
You summed it up.
Okay, what do we got next, Al?
Let's bring down everyone for A.R.E. Jeopardy.
Let's go.
Ready? Question number 1. When selecting interior finishes, for a commercial space, which factor is most critical for ensuring occupant health and well-being? Is it A, trendiness and aesthetics? B, low cost and budget friendliness? Is it C, durability and maintenance requirements? Or is it D, indoor air quality and materials emission? DCC. The answer is D, and it is D because the question was for occupancy health and well-being, which is indoor air quality and material emissions. If it was for ensuring, value, it might have been C, durability and maintenance requirements. Question 2, what is the primary goal of transit-oriented development in urban planning? Is it A, maximize the use of automobiles? Is it B, promote pedestrian-friendly environments? Is it C, increase reliance on single-use zoning? Or D, to minimize public transportation options? Once I read through that again today, I made this yesterday, I was like, okay, it's obvious. Promote pedestrian-friendly environments. The other ones were like not good goals. Yeah. Okay, Lance.
Number 3. Is Alan elitist? No. What is the most versatile material to serve the structural function when creating complex geometries? Is it A, wood, B, steel, C, concrete, or D, brick masonry? Correct answer is B, steel. Should be obvious. Number 4, the majority of building materials and methods currently in the marketplace economically lend themselves to constructing what? Is it A, flat planes, B, spherical geometry, C, warp planes, D, uniformly curved surface? Correct answer is A. All right, what do we got for scores? Did you? Jason, no tiebreaker. Where are we going to eat?
I don't know. First, give him your stamp. Where are we going to eat? Oh, that's great. I can't be here today, but that's an amazing
I'm
one.
going to try to be there. Okay, awesome. If you like this episode and you want to leave us a positive comment, that would be great. Do it on the YouTube. If you are an elitist and you want to actually leave us a negative comment because I crushed you, then leave us a negative one. See you next week.